So next we're going to talk about expanding prescribed fire in the mountains and beyond. So our first two speakers are going to be Wesley Sketo, the wildfire mitigation forester for North Carolina Forest Service. And then we also have Phil Wallace, the silviculture staff forester at the Forest Service. With that, I hand the mic off to Wesley and Phil.
I'm Phil Wallace, staff forester for silviculture with the North Carolina Forest Service. And I'm going to be talking about prescribed burning associations and how we are taking advantage of them to increase our prescribed fire capacity here in North Carolina. So,
hey, Phil, you sound like you're outside. Can you speak closer to the mic?
Okay, is that a little better?
Yeah, slightly.
Okay, make sure this is coming through my phone and not the computer audio here.
Yeah, it's sounding better now, wherever you did.
Okay. All right, so if we're looking at expanding capacity, we can really do this in only one of two ways. Something's having a little difficulty here. Here we go. So one way is we increase the opportunities to burn. We're out there burning more often, and we're largely constricted by our weather parameters and our fuel conditions on site. We can do things to push policy that allows us to expand our acceptable parameters for smoke management. We've moved the needle a little bit with that through the use of atmospheric dispersion modeling. We can also improve efficiencies in planning and coordination and readiness so that we can better take advantage when the opportunity does present itself. But by and large, we're restricted to the weather and the conditions of the day. The other way we can expand capacity is to increase the number of people out burning on the landscape at any given time. And that's really where we're focusing with prescribed burning associations. We're looking to train more people, improve the certification process with prescribed fire certification, and we want to support folks better, new burners, new trainees, so that they can become better experienced and be more competent and confident with taking on burning themselves. And that's really where the PBAs come in. So what is a prescribed burn association? We've heard it described as a partnership or network or collaborative, but really at the end of the day, it's people coming together to learn about and apply prescribed fire on the landscape. That's really the simplest definition. And PBAs, depending on where you are in the community you're in and where you are in the country, can look quite different across the state and across the country. So who are the people that make up the PBAs? Well, here in North Carolina, we've had a large focus around private landowners, but we also have a lot of professionals involved, both public and private. But it can really be anyone interested in prescribed fire. Like I said, these PBAs, based on the needs of the particular community, can look very different. Some of the areas we've tried to focus on within the PBAs here is outreach, education, providing a sense of community and building a culture around prescribed fire. And Jesse Wimberly, who's coordinator of the Sandhills PBA, and I'll be talking a little bit more about the different PBAs, I've often heard him say that it's kind of like the old barn raising, where the community comes together and shares resources and helps each other out to accomplish their objectives. But at the end of the day, what we want to see is action. We want to see more acres burned on the ground. One of the things we've done with North Carolina Forest Service and some of the other PBAs, all of the PBAs have access to equipment. We haven't wanted equipment or lack of equipment to be a constraining factor for folks wanting to get out there and do their own burning. So we've purchased 4 prescribed burn trailers, and it has many of the tools you would need to go out and do a prescribed burn. Everything from drip torches, leaf blowers, smoke signs to notify people of potential smoke problems on the road, hand tools, backpack pumps, radios for communication, just a lot of the things that a landowner may not have right at their disposal. it's kind of a one-stop shop for all of those things. And those are available through all the PBAs here in North Carolina. So I mentioned the Sandhills PBA a minute ago. It's probably, it is the oldest and most established PBA we have here in the state. Again, that's coordinated by Jesse Wimberly, and the North Carolina Forest Service has been involved with several of the other PBAs. I've been mostly involved with the Bladen Lakes area PBA, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a pilot program that we've tested there in that area, and we'll be expanding to some of the other areas. There's the Eastern PBA, which is out of Rocky Mount, and it supports Nash, Edgecombe, and surrounding counties there. Then we have some newly forming PBAs. The Down East PBA, which is based out of Newbern, and it supports Craven and surrounding counties. And Wes Sketo is going to be talking about a PBA that we're in the process of forming in the western part of the state, there in the foothills and eastern part of the mountains, which with the Down East and the Western PBA, we've had some initial meetings to discuss some of the leadership and the initial formation of those, and all the talks have been very positive there. So switching gears a little bit, talking about, I mentioned the pilot program at Bladen Lakes. I need to kind of go back and fill in some history there and how this came to be. North Carolina Forest Service is responsible for the North Carolina Certified Burner Program here in North Carolina. And we started noticing we were putting a lot of folks through this course, especially in the landowner segment. A lot of landowners taking the course, but there was not a lot of follow through to actually become certified. And for those of you not familiar, the course is a 2-day course. A ton of knowledge is thrown at folks. It is pretty intensive. Day in the class, a day in the field, and then we say, okay, now it's time for you to demonstrate your proficiency. So you need to work with someone who's certified to plan and execute a burn on your own. And we started doing surveys of people who had taken the course, and we quickly realized there was a lack of support for people from the time they got done with the course, but trying to get ready to do those initial burns. They just didn't have folks to work with, and nobody really invested in their training. That was just a major shortcoming. So we said, what can we do about this? And we came up with the idea of coming up with a mentoring program, and with the thought of providing both one-on-one and small group training and field settings as a way to bridge that gap and get folks up to speed. Originally, we were wanting to do this with our existing staff, and the reality is that we really needed somebody dedicated to that. Our existing staff, the days that the landowner would want to be burning are the same days that they need to be out burning the contracts that they have in the counties with their burning. So there was a little bit of a conflict there. And we ended up hiring 2 prescribed fire education specialists late in 2019. Mike Hardison and Hugh Frazier, both of them were retired district rangers down in the southeastern coastal plain of the state. They came back with a wealth of prescribed fire and wildfire experience and teaching experience. And right as they were hitting the ground running, COVID hit. And we were really restricted in what we could do, meeting with folks and putting on training. And I really have to give them a lot of credit, because we came up with ways to, I don't want to say get around it, but to safely work within the guidelines and still have a pretty good, strong program. And to date, they have worked with 64 participants, providing 957 hours of combined individual and group learning instruction. They were able to certify 10 individuals over the last 2 burning seasons, despite having fairly short burning seasons due to wet weather and the restrictions placed on COVID. So this program, with the success we've had around the Bladen Lakes area, we're looking to expand that, and we'll probably be expanding that into the New Bern and Morganton areas with the newly forming PBAs over the coming months. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Wes Sketo, who's going to talk a little bit about the Western PBA that we're trying to form and how that might look similar or different and some of the unique challenges they may have there versus the PBAs that we have in the coastal plain and Piedmont. So Wes, I'll hand it over to you.
So we're looking at the map here in North Carolina. Hello to everybody. Out here in smoky southern Oregon. So unfortunately, Wi-Fi is not set up for y'all to see my beautiful mug today, but happy to be with you. Looking at the map here, we got all the national forest land out here on the western end of the map, and then you've got in the center Uwharrie National Forest, and then out on the coast you got the Croatan, and those lines that you're looking at is a 10-mile boundary, and those are the CPP eligible areas. This is where a lot of federal funding gets thrown, and there's a lot of good work that's gone on for years and years. These prescribed burn associations, I believe, are key in kind of driving those efforts outside of those rings. So when we started looking at the potential foothills, like it's labeled here on the map, or Catawba River Basin kind of runs through there. I-40 West, I think, is kind of catchy. But, once we get the membership stood up on this PBA and really get it rolling, they'll kind of settle on a name. And I just wanted to kind of walk you through how we identified that area that you're looking at in pink. So you see on this map in blue, we've got those CPP boundaries. And so we just kind of drew a circle there, looking at, okay, here's what we want to pick up. And then within that area, our initial kind of wide cast net, we started looking at what you're looking at on the shaded areas there, and kind of the pinkish orangish color. Those are areas of concern that have been identified in CWPPs, things that we've got on the book that residents and rangers, North Carolina Forest Service, everybody is thrown in with local fire departments and identified, okay, these are areas that we really need to address. So we prioritized those areas, and that's how we came out with the counties that you saw listed on the other side there. You've got the portions of Burke and Caldwell that are not CPP eligible. We'll focus on those eastern ends of those counties. Catawba, Lincoln, and Gaston, you see, really high concentrations there. Once this thing gets rolling, we definitely can expand out to some of those eastern strip of counties, start picking up northern Mecklenburg there, and just expand as we go. But that's the thought behind kind of formation for territory. So different funding and support that's available for this PBA. You got the COCO AIM grant. That application is in the works for the next cycle. Jonathan Hartzell with Blue Ridge RC&D is running point on that. Good to have partners there, and those NGOs really can help amplify these type of, anybody that's ever had TNC out on a burn, they know about those non-government partners and how valuable they can be. Phil and among others has kind of, as he was mentioning before with those burn trailers, one of them has been earmarked for this PBA, looking at probably Morganton as a starting place, but you got a pretty good corridor there running east and west on I-40 that you can kind of get out and be pretty mobile with that trailer as it comes to, having those resources move around to where they need to be. That's also, provided by U.S. Forest Service grant funds. So good there. We've also got in-kind grant matches. Anybody that's ever messed with grants all that much knows that you got to have matching funds, and that can be, people's travel, people's time. We got those NGOs that I talked about, academia. Really going to be looking to get folks plugged into that mentor role that aren't already dealing with their own backlog of burning. When it's a good burn day and folks are getting out there to go take care of the burns they've got in line, we want to look at some of that retiree, some of that academia, so sort of reach out to feelers in a lot of different directions. So then membership dues is another one. Once this thing really gets rolling, it can start to kind of fund itself a little bit. Replacement of PPE for its members, funding annual meetings, training, all those things are options once that gets established. So really the four pillars that we're going to put together for a prescribed burn association. Phil has hit on some of them already. When I first started hearing about PBAs, I believe it was around 2010, somewhere in there. I was at a South Carolina Prescribed Fire Council meeting, and they had a fella from Oklahoma out there, and he was talking about, how they all the ranchers help each other burn, and how all the benefits to standing up PBAs. And it's really encouraging here to see just in a short amount of time, really, that concept take over and spread across North Carolina. So the mentoring, I think, is going to be key. Having that big backlog that Phil talked about of the people coming out of the Certified Burner program, pairing them up with mentors to help them finish off their certification. Landowner networking, the heart of it, in my opinion, is just getting those property owners, those neighbors, to help each other burn. The burn trailer is going to cover the equipment loan portion of this. And then also outreach, getting everybody plugged in, making folks aware that this thing is out there, that this thing is available to them. And once we start kind of getting some burns done, Phil's got the red signs. May not have been in this slide program. I turned my head for just a second, but North Carolina Forest Service does have a recognition program for prescribed burn on private property. So getting a lot more of that done, and just getting this thing, success begets more success. So that's what we're looking to get established. So as Phil was saying, looks very different. You got the sand hills on this screen that we're looking at. North Florida, very active burning territory. Southern Illinois, out here in California, you got the PBA there down at the bottom. Texas Panhandle, wrapping around to Oklahoma, where all this really got started. And then look at some of these websites as you're out there. Do some poking around. Can be very different. That one down in South Dakota, southern South Dakota, the Missouri River there. Check out their website. Pretty impressive. Just all kind of different reasons. They're actually trying to knock back cedar trees, trying to kill encroachment coming into their pasture lands. So, once these get established, and like I said, with the membership dues and it just build and build, annual meetings really can be, somebody that can put some barbecue on a grill like what we got in the middle there, and something cold to wash it down with. You got a recipe for a lot of turnout, a lot of that outreach that I was talking about. So thanks for having me on. For those that I haven't met in person, I saw a lot of names familiar to me, but I was a management forester at DuPont for 3 years when I came on to the state of North Carolina, and like my introduction said there, moved over to the mitigation forester job on the fire staff coming up on a year ago. So I look forward to meeting those that I haven't, and I appreciate your time today. Phil, I think we can go on to questions from the chat.
Thank you, Wes and Phil. I pulled a question out. Just Thomas was asking, how much burning has the Bladen Lakes PBA done so far?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think through memberships, it's somewhere between 500 and 800 acres with the PBA members there in that area.
Let's see. Do you think that North Carolina Prescribed Fire Council could better support PBAs across North Carolina? And if so, how?
That's a good question. I think one of the areas is getting more landowners involved with the council and figuring out how we can better integrate with them. And the PBAs may be an avenue for that. So I think there might be others on here like Jesse that might could better answer that question. But I think there is a role. What that looks like, I'm just not sure.
Hey, Phil, I have a question.
Yeah.
How does the equipment trailers work? Because you can only probably take it to one place at a time.
Right. We really want to make sure that when we're putting those out there, that it's being done within the context of the North Carolina Prescribed Fire Act, that we are doing prescribed burning and we have somebody that's qualified there. We typically will send those out and drop them off on site for somebody to utilize. And we have a checklist, we go through all the items with them. And then when they're ready to return it, we go through, check, make sure everything's there and right, and pick it up.
So somebody brings it out to the site and drops it off then, and then they come out and get it again? Well, that's convenient.
Yeah, and it's kind of a more or less a first come, first serve. We do kind of give a priority to landowners that are doing their own burning over, say, a private contractor, but private contractors even have access to it within those PBAs.
And Phil, where can people go to learn more about the PBA you're trying to get established here? That has
right now, we don't have anything on the websites. We're still kind of trying to figure out some of the logistical questions. So we're really, we haven't begun reaching out to landowners yet, but if somebody wanted to become involved with the one down east, Derek Moore with the North Carolina Forest Service, the District Ranger, is going to be the coordinator there. And probably Wes, who was just presenting, or Justin Query in the western part of the state.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments for Phil or Wes? Thomas asked if the trailers are getting used pretty heavily.
It varies. Some areas more so than others. Where we've got the pilot program down at Bladen Lakes, that trailer is getting used quite frequently. The one that we have deployed in Rocky Mount is getting used quite a bit. So that PBA looks quite a bit different than the PBA at Bladen Lakes. The other two, like I said, with those just forming, and we just got those trailers, those hadn't been put out yet. We've just got them ready in the last several weeks.
All right, great. And it looks like there's a couple different resources that have been shared in the chat. A link from Laurel to a map of PBAs that you can find provided by our sister exchange, the Great Plains Fire Science Exchange, and then some information from NCSU.